Blog Talk Radio.
Could the biggest science project ever lead to the end of the world?
The massive gas line ruptures, could it happen in your neighborhood?
How many sex offenders live in your neighborhood?
Are there terrorist cells in your neighborhood?
Marijuana, could it be in your neighborhood?
Are your kids being brainwashed? I'll tell you who's taking cues from the Nazis.
A town in California is insisting that every second grader learns about gay penguins.
Social engineering of America's children.
We'll have global governance run by elites.
We'll have our own little China workforce right here in America.
Doomsday 2000. Killer bees. Bird flu.
The terror threat. The superbug.
Global pandemic.
Illegal aliens.
Gun restrictions.
Right-wing terrorism.
Evangelical Christianity.
Gay marriage.
Death panels.
The flip-flop.
Indoctrination.
Militias.
Anarchy, chaos, and cannibalism. Gosh, we better wake up soon. Or we're going to wake up dead.
Hi, this is Tatiana Moroz, and you're listening to Journalistic Revolution.
I gotta get myself out of this town, and I don't know where I'm gonna be found. This time's for sure. I gotta get up, get out, and get down. This I know. I'm sick of waiting lately.
Hello, everybody. It's Matt Charlton with Journalistic Revolution. How are y'all doing today? Sunday evening, 11 p.m. Got my headphones down. It's a little loud. I just want to thank y'all for being with me tonight. It's going to be a fun show, I think. It's the second attempt at going by myself. Last week's debacle, but we're hoping for a better outcome. Tonight we're going to cover a high school student who is apparently a special needs high school student gets busted by the police on an undercover sting. That's kind of messed up. Eric Holder might have a perjury problem, and a judge sentenced to about 28, 30 years for selling kids in the prison system. A little bit later in the show, we're going to be covering the plan to take America back, place all state and federal capitals under civil disobedience siege that was put out by americasvoicenow.org. And in the final segment, we're going to be talking about freedom in the 50 states, the overall top 50 states, top 50 states, there's only 50 states around, but the top states with the most freedom, and we're going to get to that tonight. I just want to thank you all again for being here. During the first segment break, I am going to be debuting a friend of mine's song. They're called Takeout. They're good friends of mine. I go to some of their shows locally here in Orlando. They're a lot of fun. So please stay tuned for that. So let me get on to the first story, and then really, I picked some stories that kind of upset me. So you might hear a little ranting going on. Let me pull it up here, and I don't know why I chose to do that. Maybe because I figure maybe they'll be more entertaining hearing me a little angry at the system. But let me go over this first one. This is from Alternet.org. This is not the first place I've seen this story. I've checked the sources. Cops go undercover at high school to bust special needs kids for pot. Now, apparently this was a whole sting throughout the whole school, and they busted several kids. But one kid in particular, a 17-year-old special needs student, and according to the article, I'm going to start here from the beginning. California's Doug and Catherine Snodgrass are suing their son's high school for allowing undercover police officers to set up the 17-year-old special needs student for a drug arrest. In a video segment on ABC News, they say they were thrilled when their son, who has Asperger's and other disabilities and struggled to make friends, appeared to have instantly made a friend named Daniel. I'm going to stop there for a second. That right there kind of upsets me because Daniel turns out being the undercover police officer. And here's a kid who's obviously has, some issues, struggles to make friends, and here's a cop pretending to be his friend. I mean, how does someone like that go home and go to sleep at night and look at their family or their wife in the eyes and say, you know what, I'm doing really great things over at that high school. I just don't get that. He suddenly had this friend who was texting him around the clock, Doug Snodgrass told ABC News. His son had just recently enrolled at Chaparral High School. Daniel, however, was an undercover cop with the Riverside County Sheriff's Department who hounded the teenager to sell him his prescription medication. So here's a 17-year-old kid with Asperger's and other disabilities who has prescription medication, much needed prescription medication, and the cop is hounding him for that medication. When he refused, the undercover cop gave him $20 to buy him weed, and he complied, not realizing the guy he wanted to befriend wanted him behind bars. Now, folks, I don't know about you, that just strikes me as, more police cop corruption, cops overstepping their bounds. First off, without even discussing the no victim, no crime, I think what really bugs me about this is, cops do this kind of stuff all the time, and nobody ever calls them out for it. Now, I don't know what's going to happen to this police officer. I hope he gets, I hope he gets what's coming to him, whenever that is. The chances are, like me and Robert have said before, you're going to hear, well, we're putting him on administrative paid leave, and then a month after that you'll hear, well, after an investigation, turns out that, he worked within the rules of the, some BS statement, and it drives me crazy. Now, I'm going to go on here. In December, the unnamed senior was arrested along with 21 other students from 3 schools, all charged with crimes related to the 2 officers' undercover drug operation at 2 public schools, Temecula, California. And this March, Judge Marion H. Tully ruled that Temecula Valley United School District could not expel the student and had, in fact, failed to provide him with proper services. Well, good for you, Judge. Good thing that the judge is doing good. I'm going to be covering a corrupt judge here in a few minutes. Within 3 days of the officer's request, the student burned himself due to his anxiety, Tully said. Ultimately, the student was persuaded to buy marijuana for someone he thought was a friend who desperately needed this drug and brought it to school for him. In January, a juvenile court judge decided that extenuating circumstances applied to the student's case and ruled that he serve informal probation and 20 hours of community service, which would translate into no finding of guilt. That's just sad. I mean, I feel sorry for the kid. I feel sorry for his parents. And frankly, I feel sorry for the good cops out there actually, that do their job. And granted, I'll never agree with a cop enforcing unjust laws, and they all do it. But there are some cops out there that, that do a good job, and at least they hold true. Some of them have joined Oath Keepers, which is really good, and I like to see that. Now, let me continue on. Since being allowed back to school, Snodgrass says his son has been bullied via suspicions and threats of expulsion. And he goes on, Mr. Snodgrass says, our son was cleared of the criminal charge, but the school continued to try and expel him. Way to go, school. It's another government institution. The Snodgrasses are now suing the school for unspecified damages. District administrators told ABC should have protected their son, but instead, I'm sorry, I got to start that one over. This is the Snodgrasses once again. District administrators should have protected their son, but instead participated with local authorities in an undercover drug sting that intentionally targeted and discriminated against him. Now, I don't know how much more I can say about this article. I could go on and reading it, but the reality is, folks, we all know it. I'm preaching to the choir out there. Hopefully, there's a few people out there that are new to the show and understand that cops are assholes. They're following the letter of the law. Now I know there's a few of them out there that are good, Oath Keepers, but they don't all make it kind of hurts the good cops, man. When they're not holding each other accountable, they're a mafia. You know, they get up, they got that little brotherhood thing going on, and that just drives me crazy. So crazy, in fact, I think I'm going to move on to the next segment here. All right, I'm gonna move on here to Eric Holder. Now, for many of you, I'm sure you know who Eric Holder is. He's the Attorney General. He was appointed Attorney General after basically committing a crime, as far as I see it. And I guess that's what we all need to do. We all need to get government jobs and commit crimes. I guess that's the best way to get promoted within the government. I mean, honestly, it just snowballs for anybody who just decides to go into government. Decides to get a government job, you're in a brotherhood, you can just do whatever the hell you want, nobody's going to hold you accountable, and the next thing you know, you get a promotion. So last week, while under oath, and this is according to Breitbart.com, Attorney General Eric Holder testified before a House committee that when it comes to trying to prosecute the press for the publication of material, he has never been involved in or heard of such a thing. But however, Thursday, we learned that it was Holder who signed off on the application for a warrant to gain access to the private emails and phone records of Fox News reporter James Rosen. In doing so, Holder labeled Rosen a co-conspirator to obtain classified material under the Espionage Act of 1917. Now, you know, we're alternative media. You know, a lot of our news comes from our sources. You know, we try to get as good close sources as we can to the truth. I'm not a big fan of Fox News, obviously, but you know, for those reporters that are out there that have those main contacts that can get information that we otherwise can't get, someone like James Rosen doing a job in journalism, I mean, this sets a precedence. This sets a precedence that they don't care who you are and what news organization. You better not be digging for the truth, because if you dig for the truth, they're going to try and prosecute you. They're going to try and label you as a in fact, they tried to label him for espionage. I mean, which is a very sad state of affairs in the world of journalism, as bad as the mainstream media is today. So out of one side of his mouth, I'm going to continue the article, out of one side of his mouth, and while under oath, Holder says he has never heard of anyone trying to prosecute the press for publishing material. Out of the other side of his mouth, Holder is accusing reporters of espionage on applications for subpoenas. You know, I really wish that there was more to say about this. Eric Holder, I mean, he's part of that whole group. I mean, you're talking Obama, Pelosi. They're all, you know, there's nothing they can do wrong. And there's no many, I mean, you talk about all these scandals that have been coming out in the Obama presidency. And the guy they all just keep on trucking along. IRS keeps trucking along, pleading the fifth, talking about how they don't have to answer to us, but, you know, God forbid that we make a mistake. We forget to carry the one. Next thing you know, just like Doug Stanhope said, the burden of proof is on you, and they're going to auction and liquidate all your shit, you know, just to make up the difference so they can go fight more wars, so they can go fund more criminals, you know. And I hate to say it, it's pathetic. It's pathetic that the people that we put into these positions of power, and then we just let them run amok. It depresses me that there are not more people angry about this. I mean, the Republicans are angry, but, you know, are they angry because the Democrats got busted for corruption? You know, are they, you know, the Democrats turn around and get angry when the Republicans get busted for corruption, but nobody holds themselves accountable when the rubber meets the road. So, you know, I can sit here and talk, well, the Republicans are angry. Well, screw the Republicans. They don't get angry at themselves. They don't get angry at their own guys. So, not to say I'm surprised that the Republicans are angry that all this corruption is going on in the Obama administration. And we talked about it before. Is this planned? Or is all of this planned so that they can, you know, switch the political party of power and put the Republicans back in for another 8 years of corruption and wars and high taxes, et cetera, et cetera. You know, the Republicans claim they're for smaller taxes. I don't buy into that bullshit. So I want to throw the number out here for anybody who might want to call in, 323-417-6713. If you want to call in and talk, if you have something you want to add to any of these stories I'll be going over tonight, that would be great. It'll help my night go a little bit faster, a little bit better. If not, just listen to the sound of my voice. I'm going to move on to the next story here, and this one here. This one upsets me. We talked about it the other night briefly, because I look at someone like Rich Paul, and he's getting 81 years in prison for selling drugs. And it really just shows a lack of respect that this nation has for itself. When we can look at a man who did nothing more than become a voice in liberty, become a voice for something he believed in, and here he is selling pot, and they go in, they get a heroin dealer to flip on him. The heroin dealer goes free, and Rich Paul winds up facing 81 years in prison. Now, folks, they're trying to raise money for his appeal, so if you can throw $1, $2, whatever, go to Facebook, go to Free Rich Paul, you can search it, and maybe throw him $1 or $2, whatever you can afford. If it's 20, you know, it's helping towards his appeal. But he's getting 81 years, and this Pennsylvania judge is only sentenced for 28 years for selling kids to the prison system. Now, many of you know the prison system is private. It's been basically privatized, most of it, a lot of it. And, you know, now they're taking these people that are in prison and they're working them for pennies on the dollar. Anybody ever seen Shawshank Redemption? It's basically that same thing. They're going out there, they're taking contracts, they're doing work, and they're undercutting contractors, and they're making money at the expense of the taxpayers. And basically it's just giving them a free way to send people to jail for every little thing. Oh, and by the way, based on this information, the average American commits 3 felonies a day. So guess what, cops? You're not exempt either. You might find yourself in one of these prison camps doing work to make somebody else money. But here's this guy, 61 years old, former judge in Pennsylvania, has been sentenced to nearly 30 years in prison for literally selling young juveniles for cash. He was convicted of accepting money in exchange for incarcerating thousands of adults and children into a prison facility owned by a developer who was paying him under the table. Now, this is from blacknews.com. The kickbacks amounted to more than $1 million. Well, guess what, Judge? Now you can go work in the prison system, and you can go make money for that developer, probably for that same developer, which I think is absolutely ironic. I don't know for certain. That's just my wishful thinking. The Pennsylvania Supreme Court has overturned some 4,000 convictions issued by him between 2003 and 2008. Good for them. Claiming he violated the constitutional rights of the juveniles, including the right to legal counsel and the right to intelligently enter a plea. Some of the juveniles he sentenced were as young as 10 years old. 10 years old. I mean, I can't imagine. I've never been to prison, but I can't imagine going to prison or any kind of juvenile court being 10 years old and having to live under those conditions when I've done nothing wrong. Maybe I had done something wrong, and a slap on the wrist would have turned my life around. A warning, a stern warning, a good plea bargain, But Cia Varela was convicted on 12 counts, including racketeering, money laundering, mail fraud, and tax evasion. He was also ordered to repay $1.2 million in restitution. That's good. His Kids for Cash program has revealed that corruption is indeed within the prison system, mostly driven by the growth of private prisons seeking profits by any means necessary. Now, private prisons, that's an odd, because can they be considered private if they're getting paid per prisoner by the tax? Are they being paid by our tax dollars? Or is it a matter of these prisons have to fund themselves by making these people go out and work? And I look at it like, it's really undercuts people, hardworking Americans who, I used to work in the construction industry. If I was working, if my company was bidding against some prison who could undercut my company by tons of dollars, millions of dollars, because they were basically not paying prisoners, I'd be furious. I would be absolutely furious. And you got to really think, yes, we could privatize the prison system. I'm all for privatization. But I think it would be a much easier thing to manage if we weren't jailing God knows how many people for victimless crimes. Prisons would be much smaller. They'd be easier to manage, easier to fund. I think that, when you look at how the system is run with corrupt judges, corrupt cops, corrupt prisons, all across the board, everybody's corrupt, and it's all because government lets them do it. I'll give you an example. I love this story because it's basically the truth about how government works. A piece of fence was damaged outside the White House, and it was a 7-foot piece of section. And people in the Congress, we got to get bidders, and we got to figure out how much it's going to cost us. So they get 3 bids coming in, and the first guy, he bid $700, $250 for the labor. Let me do my quick math. $500 for the parts and everything, and I'm sorry, $400 for the parts and $100 for profit. And then the next guy comes and he gives his bid. He bids $600, and it's $200 for labor, $350 for material, and $50 profit. And the third guy that they get to bid, he comes in and says, well, I can fix that 7-piece of fence for $2,500. And the guy looks at him and goes, $2,500? You just, I got 2 other bids here for $600 and $700. And he's like, well, that's fine, but I'm going to need $300 for material, $250 for labor, and then you and I can just split the rest. And that's how government works. There's no accountability because it's taxpayer money. It's something they don't have to pay back. A contractor wants to build a building. He wants to build a house. If he doesn't have a buyer, he has no accountability, but he has accountability to himself. He has to pay that back. He's not going to borrow more than he can afford. He's going to get the bare bones minimum to build that building or build that house. Same with a homeowner. If a homeowner, wants a house built and he hires a contractor, well, guess what? The contractor is subject to the homeowner. And that's the systemic problem with government running private industry, or running any kind of industry. They're stealing your tax dollars. There's no accountability. They just, look, I want to go see what effect butterfly farts have on the wind and how they affect the corn growing in Arkansas or Nebraska or wherever they grow corn. I mean, that is what we deal with. That is what happens when you have government and tax dollars, trillions of dollars of tax dollars taken in, and no accountability. Nobody holds them accountable because nobody pays attention. But folks, if you were hiring the government, if you were to hire the government to handle, something that you wanted done specifically, say government was the only housing contract out there, and you were using your tax dollars only that you put in, and you knew you were going to have to pay for it for the rest of your life, don't you think you'd make them spend as little amount of money as possible? Yeah, you might go a little extra on the flooring if you want some nice flooring or a nicer kitchen, but for the most part, you're going to hold them accountable, and you're going to make sure they're doing it the cheapest and most efficient, fastest way possible. Well, folks, I'm pretty much done with the first segment. I'm going to go ahead and take a break. I'm going to play my friend's song. It's kind of a long song, but it's really good. And their band is Takeout. They're playing at the House of Blues on June 8th, I think, is Saturday night. And I want to play their music. They're really great bands. They're really great friends. So let me know what you think at the end. Send me a message. So you can look them up on Facebook. let me see here. Takeout music. If www.facebook.com/takeoutmusic. Give them a listen too. Give them a try. You can find them on, and you can download their music. 2 of their songs you can download for free, and 1 for 99 cents. So here's their song. It's about 7 minutes long. Enjoy. That's my buddy's band Takeout. The name of that song is Never Forget. I love them. I go see them as much as I can whenever they play live. I just want to bring up a couple of things before I move on to the next story. Something that Robert and I are going to start a segment starting Wednesday called Statist Anonymous. And what that is it's going to be we're going to do one segment a show over the next 6 weeks, only on Wednesdays and Fridays, not by myself. We're basically going to create the 12-step program for statists. And you can go to Facebook and go to facebook.com/statistanonymous, and you can, like the page, stay tuned for, and after each show we will put out in print, the individual step, and we will also put a video out on YouTube. It's just it's satire, it's fun, but it's also something you can show your friends who are still kind of trapped in that cognitive dissonance of the system. So, show them Statist Anonymous, let them out, have a little fun with your friends. Also, one thing I want to bring up, Liberty Movement Radio, it's they added us on. They're great guys. Eric's great. Tripp is great. Caleb, they're a lot of fun. I don't want to call anybody a freeloader who listens who gets, entertainment for free. I mean, I don't think that's necessarily fair. I understand that people out there without jobs, it's great to find free entertainment, and we appreciate every listener we get. But if you're out there and you got a job and you got $2 a month, something like that. I mean, even if it's not us, I mean, great, we would love it for us. But I mean, anything you find, contribute to it. This movement, if you will, if you want to call it that, the community isn't going to sustain itself. Skip that McDonald's meal once a week. McDeath meal is what I like to call it. Throw a couple bucks, or $1 at 5 different things, or $2 at 5 different things, whatever you can afford. Help sustain people that are spending their free time doing things to further the movement. And if you can't do anything, and I understand that, I've been in that position. I've been without work. I've been, completely broke. Link us, share us, tell your friends, check these guys out. Help us bring the movement, the community stronger and greater. And I think, we all benefit in the end. So I'm going to move on. I found this. Somebody posted it the other day, and this was added by Michael Evans to americasvoicenow.org on April 11th, 2013. So it's about a month and a half old now, and it's a different type of civil disobedience, quite different from Adam Kokesh. He calls it the plan to take back America, quote unquote, place all state and federal capitals under civil disobedience siege. Now, I kind of like it. I kind of perused it. I figured we could go over it all together here. I'm going to kind of read you the first couple paragraphs here before he goes into the plan. Ladies and gentlemen, the time has arrived for us to make or break. No longer can we sit and ponder who will do something. Who is going to stop the tyranny and treasonous actions of our state and federal governments? Today, all of that ends. Today, we take our nation back by peaceful civil disobedience and siege. Today, we commit to bring all state and federal governments, agencies, and branches to a screeching, blood-curdling halt. He's got some interesting language, but I see where he's trying to, bring your emotion up. No more fear, no more hiding in the shadows. Today, we will make a choice. I am an American patriot who will solve this problem, or I am choosing the side of slavery and betrayal. So it gives you two sides to choose from. Either you are the solution or you are the problem. I often, I was reading this, and it's basically his plan, and I'm going to kind of go over it in depth, but basically his plan is to stop paying taxes. As an entire nation, stop paying taxes. And I've often pondered that. What if everybody just got so fed up that they just stopped paying taxes? What if they stopped giving the money, feeding the beast? What if they just chose to make the beast starve? And I mean, it would be a great and wonderful thing. I think it would be a difficult task to get, what do we have? I think it's 47% of Americans pay taxes. So you're going to try and get 47%. And it's not just people. It's not just individuals. He's trying to tell the businesses. And I think the reason why that is because as if us as individuals just decided to stop, paying taxes, well, no business would go for it because the taxes are taken directly out of your check. So he goes on to say the time for I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce this word, vacillation, and hand-wringing are done. Hold on a second. Today, we as a nation, as a people, as a business, as a parent, as a child, as a family, today we take action. We will starve this beast into submission. We will bring the entire nation in every state to a screeching halt economically and peacefully using the tool of civil disobedience. Prepare yourself for trouble, discomfort, hunger, cold, and fear, but most importantly, prepare yourself for success. Success in restoring our nation to the rule of law, to morals, ethics, honesty, and the courage to take on the hard and painful tasks of bringing order to chaos. Our nation is at the end of a long road. From here, the road goes left or right. There is no more straight ahead. Which I think it's kind of funny. Is it left or right? Kind of bringing in the left-right status paradigm. But I just think you got to use better words. Maybe I'm just being nitpicky because I don't like those terms. But I'm going to continue on. He's done basically describing kind of that interlude. Here's the plan. All businesses cease sending in sales taxes, employee contribution taxes, and any other funds that go to the state or federal governments. Withhold any. That's number one. Number two. Withhold any payments made to any government agency, either state or federal, until the demands are met. Number three, withhold all real estate tax payments. Number four, withhold all payments to banks, mortgage companies, auto loans, credit card companies, revolving lines of credit, real estate taxes. And I see what he's doing here because he's basically lumped the bankers, the banks, if you will. So I think when he means all businesses, he means all small businesses. He's basically saying, bankers, you're in this too. You're part of the problem, and you're not getting paid. Now, you have to kind of get the tow truck companies on your side on this one because the banking companies are just going to insist that they're just going to go and pick up your stuff. So, you have to hope that all the tow truck companies are on your side as well. Number five, cease all orders for new products and services. Basically, screeching the entire economy to a halt. And, a lot of people would argue, and I would probably be on the side to argue this, would be that you would basically, by just doing those first five things, you would be starting a depression. And he even basically, he pretty much says it near the end here that is the ultimate goal. That this is going to be hard times for the people who are choosing to get involved with this. He's saying, he says something along the lines of, and I'll get to it eventually, but make sure you have enough shit for 90 days. But he says he doesn't picture it going longer than 15. Number six, place the funds in designated escrow accounts and withhold the funds until the state and federal governments capitulate. The end goal, number seven, question mark, bring all commerce, funding, and payments to a halt. No money moves, period. No product moves, period. So basically everybody take a 3-month vacation. Buy up enough stuff, which is, it's funny is because if everybody went around and bought up enough stuff to last them for 3 months, the economy would probably turn around for, it would eventually even out. But the economy, it would actually throw the economy for a loop because people would go out and buy a bunch of stuff. Producers would think that they would need to go out and make a bunch of stuff, order a bunch of stuff. It would probably cause a lot more chaos. So I see where he's going with it. There's a few, kinks in it. I guess if you're going to halt orders for new products and services, you got to make sure you got enough for everybody to go buy some for 90 days as well. So, It would take quite a bit of preparation. Now, he goes on to say, let me check if I got any phone calls here. Nope, no phone calls. That's fine. Keep listening to me. He goes on to say, all individuals, number one, prepare yourselves and families to take shifts in camping out in front of the state and federal capitals until all demands are met. Basically, anybody who lives around, like we live in Florida, anybody who lives around the Tallahassee area, you guys are on. I mean, unless you want me to come stay at your place, I can bring my tent and stay up there for a couple days and maybe go back home. But fuel might be a little sparse. So it probably have to be all those that reside within the Tallahassee area. Number two, withhold all payments to banks, mortgage companies, auto loans, credit card companies. Number three, place all funds in a designated escrow account and withhold the funds until the state and federal governments capitulate. Number four, purchase only what you need in food and fuel for a 90-day window. So 3 months he's predicting that you would need. But number five, he goes on and says, don't worry, it can't last that long. Remember, 90% of America has only enough food to last 3 days. Understand that state governments are required by law to pay all bills with real money, and they don't have the luxury of a Federal Reserve who can print endless greenbacks. States will break within 10 to 15 days, maybe less. Number six, the end goal. Starve the beast. Bring all commerce to a halt. No work, no taxes paid, no purchases, no commerce, no movement. A complete and total freeze of all money, supplies, and work. Now, like I said, I've often wondered back in, getting into this movement, you often wonder, would something like this work? Halting the entire, just stop paying taxes. Just don't do it anymore. Don't put up with it. Don't feed the beast. I mean, it would be absolutely insane to try, but I wonder how many of them, I wonder how much it would work. I wonder how much because you think about how many people work for the government. And I'm not talking about your Congress, your Senate. I mean, there's government workers all across every state, police, fire, military. I mean, it would absolutely bring everything to a screeching halt. And I like the idea. I think there's a few kinks in it. Honestly, to get 300 and something Americans to just stop what they're doing might be a little more difficult than suggested, but still a pretty well thought out plan, I like to think. But he sets this to begin on July 4th, 2013, Independence Day. It kind of coincides with Adam Kokesh's march, which would be absolutely hilarious because if you got this plan to implement and then had a couple thousand people in D.C. or already at the Capitol, because Adam Kokesh recently changed it to everybody go to their Capitol, you would hope that the police aren't there because they're joining in. They have decided to not quit, but go on strike, so to speak. Now, after he goes through the first two, all businesses, all individuals, he gives slogans, which I think is hilarious because, as Americans were pretty creative when it comes to slogans and protesting. We're not leaving until you do. America, free at last. Freedom and liberty, we the people, is all of us. Enough is enough. We want our nation back. Our Constitution is the law of the land. End government lawlessness. Government under siege, not citizens. And government has boundaries. We the people enforce them. Which is pretty creative considering that's what it was meant to be some 200 plus years ago. It was meant to be us against them. And I like what he's trying to do. He's trying to unite the people. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. We were never supposed to fight with each other about which morals we were supposed to follow. Our Constitution, our Bill of Rights, they were basically a restraining order for the government. And a restraining order is only a piece of paper. That's the reason why the Second Amendment is in there, is because, just like a woman who has a restraining order on a man, it's only a piece of paper and only goes so far. If she owns a gun, he'll be less likely to be able to do anything. It's kind of the same concept. That's the reason why the Second Amendment was built into it. It's about fighting tyranny. So if you take the restraining order, the Constitution, Bill of Rights, everything, as what it was never supposed to be, us against each other, left versus right. It was supposed to be us versus them. And I think if we had stuck to that, it would probably be a lot better. But so many people today, especially in the last 30 years, have just decided that they're going to use the government for what they want and hate the government for what they don't want. And I think it's hypocritical. And I heard it today on the radio. I heard Carlos Mencia, and I know he's famous for taking other people's material. Well, I'm going to take his material here. He said, somebody asked him if he was a Republican or Democrat, and he said, well, I'm neither. And the guy goes, well, what do you mean you're neither? And he goes, well, I like to think I'm pretty smart, and I don't like being wrong half of the time. So, when you're on this left-right paradigm and you have you want to use government force for what you believe needs to be moral, but you want to keep your freedoms, doesn't matter which side of the argument on, you're half wrong. We're supposed to have all our freedoms, no victim, no crime. If it doesn't break my arm or pick my pocket, it's none of my business. And that's what our founding fathers wanted. They did not want all this backbiting and infighting, my government guy is better than your government guy argument. And that's what we allowed the government to turn us into this. We allowed them to turn us into these people fighting with each other. So I think that, this guy's got a pretty good plan. I mean, obviously, to make it work, I think it would take longer than a month, 2 months from when he decided to start it. Or maybe he should have, worked it in over a year. But he goes on to say what will happen. And he starts off with number one: a complete and total freeze will be I think he forgot a comma or something. A complete and total freeze will be impossible to hide from not only every individual in our nation, the entire world will be forced to take notice. Now, I'm glad he brought up the entire world. So it brings up a good point. If you're not paying your standing army, and this has been, I know that we have our own guns. We have an entire nation of people with guns. But if we're halting everything and get, are we going to be prepared if somebody says, hey, look, their border's down, their whole system is down? I think it would leave open for someone to come take us. I've often said I'm philosophically a voluntarist, and I believe that it's a great future goal, but unless you get 7 billion people to agree, it's not very pragmatic. Because the reality is we, in the United States, our government is guilty of creating this, where they've gone this arms race where, we might be able to fight people off, but if other countries are shooting flying planes over here and we're not prepared for it, I would really love to see a day when we're voluntarist, and I think that day could come. Might be 100 years, might be 200 years, but to be honest with you, if we're to lay down our guard, now I'm not for war. I don't believe in war. I don't believe in militarization, but I do believe in defense. So I just want to clarify that. And let me move on to number 2 of what will happen. And I think after this one, I'm going to jump to a break, and we'll come back and finish up. Number 2, the mass media will at first try to ignore it. Now, I know the mass media has been guilty of trying to ignore a lot of things. I don't know that they'd be able to actually ignore this, because their advertisers would be running dry and nobody would be paying attention to them. That's the other thing. It's you're going to lose power. You're not going to be paying your power bill. You're not going to be paying your cable bill. So chances are you're not going to be able to tell anyways. You might have cable for a month or 2. You might have power for a month or 1.5 to 2 months. But eventually that's going to, so maybe you'll get to see it, but I don't think that would be something the media would be able to ignore. especially with their advertisers. Thankfully, there is enough alternative media sources that will cover the planet with the news that America is in peaceful revolt. Those crazy Americans are taking their nation back for the second time. So I have enough time to go over one or two more. I thought that one was going to be a little more extensive, but no, I don't think that the mass media is just going to be able to ignore it. So let me see here. Let me check, see if I got any callers, folks. No callers. I'm moving onward. Number 3, state governments will be the first to capitulate. Their funding is generally hand-to-mouth. Without monetary resources from sales taxes and income tax paid via employers, they will be bereft of funds within days, which, he makes a good point. Each state doesn't have their own Federal Reserve to print up cash. I don't know that they have the ability to do like an IOU like the federal government. And that's the other thing is the federal government would probably just borrow the money from another country, saying, look, we'll just get them back working. We'll get them back working, and once we do, we'll pay you back, which I don't see how, because we've borrowed so much money from this point. God only knows how much this will pay back. All right, the number 4. The federal government can print money illegally via the Federal Reserve. So he covers this. A private cabal of banksters. They, however, also rely on tax revenues sent in from employers. They cannot print indefinitely. Further, the pressure from states, individuals, and the globe will be impossible to ignore. Granted, he's got a great. I like his idea. I like the fact that he's thinking. He's using some thought into what can we do. He's trying to come up with a solution, which most people don't do. They just sit on a radio and talk about it. Oh, oops. Number 5, and this is the last one, then I'm definitely going to take a break. The federal government will not last beyond a few weeks or perhaps a couple of months at most. Now, I'm not sure I agree with his timeline. I think the federal government will last a little longer. They'll borrow money. They'll, print money, whatever they can do to last as long as they can. It would be interesting to see if they wouldn't try to bring in the UN or another country or even our own soldiers with IOUs for martial law to try and get people. It would be very interesting to see. Now, do you do it? Do you do it peacefully, but you're prepared for violence? He didn't. I don't know. He hasn't expanded on that yet, and maybe he will in the future. I'm going to go ahead and play Immortal Technique, Peruvian Cocaine for my break real quick. Grab a drink of water, clear my throat, and I'll see you back here in a couple minutes. After that, I'm going to throw up a 1-minute ad for our friends, and I'll see you back here in about 5-6 minutes.
I've heard whispers about the financial support your government receives from the drug industry.
Well, the irony of this, of course, is that this money, which is in the billions, is coming from your country. You see, you are the major purchaser of our national product, which is, of course, cocaine.
On one hand, you're saying the United States government is spending millions of dollars to eliminate the flow of drugs onto our streets. At the same time, we are doing business with the very same government that is flooding our streets with cocaine.
See. Let me show you a few of the other characters that are involved in this tragic comedy.
I'm on the border of Bolivia, working for pennies, treated like a slave. The coca fields have to be ready. The spirit of my people is starving, broken and sweaty, dreaming about revolution, looking at my machete. But the workload is too heavy to rise up in arms, and if I ran away, I know they'd probably murder my moms. So I pray to Jesucristo when I go to the mission, process the cocaine paste and play my position.
Okay, listen, Juan Valdez, just get me my product before we chop off your hands for workers' misconduct. I got the power to shoot a copper and not get charged, and it would be sad to see your family in front of a firing squad. So to feed your kids, I need these bricks, 40 tons in total, let me test it, indeed I shit. This is good. Pass me a tissue and don't worry about them. I paid off the official.
Yo, it don't come as a challenge. I'm the son of some of the phallus, elected by my people. The only one on the ballot, born and bred to consort with feds. I laugh at fate and assassinate my predecessor to have his place in a third world fashion state. Lock the nation with 90% of the wealth and 10% of the population. A Central Intelligence Agency takes weight faithfully. The finest type of China white and cocaine you'll see.
Honey, I'm home. Never mind when your bank account suddenly groaning. Funny, we're so out of this debt for this money we owe with ya. When have I told you that I had two governments overthrown to keep our son enrolled in a private school and to keep our tummy swollen? Come on, our fucking home was built on a foundation of bloody throats. The hungry stolen of their souls. Of course this country's running coke. I took a son an oath to hush the ones who know. The CIA conducts the flow for these young hustlers that lust for dough.
I go work in the hood, hit my connect. That's what's really good is supply work to the hood. These suits fucking crack me up. Scrutinize like we inferior. Petrified when we meet in my area. My crew gon' shoot till I say so. You got the loot, give me the yay like Ice Cube, so don't play with my yayo. We gon' stop you bastards. My shoe family shop it and bag it. Taking pictures and tapping phones, debating snitches and cracking codes. Fast the cuff or blast the foe on any hustler stacking dough. This pumping crack a blow. And my overtime is where your taxes go. Or gain your trust, get you the hand wait to us. Cause we paid up front on the low with cameras taping ya. Getting pop away, the prison sentences due. Make the collar to leave with 2 keys out the evidence room. Went my fame, truck, boat, or plane, they watching you. You think you got work? They copping too. We control blocks, they lock countries and own companies. We had nice cars and sneaker money. Now it's players out there talking about they holding with bumps in their house like they down south with windows open. That dough ain't long, you wrong, you take shorts and spoon. Present be up in your mouth like forks and spoons. So enjoy the rush, live plush off coke bread. Soon you'll be in a cell with me like Jenny Lopez. In the school I was a bully, now life is fully a joke. I keep afloat on a boat for Peruvian coke. Players do favors for governors and tax makers. Fat quakers, smoke crack and sex acts with bad mayors. The walls got ears, you big mouths probably scared. Not prepared to do years like Javier. The story just told is an example of the path that drugs take on their way to every neighborhood in every state in this country. It's a lot deeper than the niggas on your block. So when they point the finger at you, brother man, this is what you gotta tell them.
I'm not guilty. You're the one who's guilty. The lawmakers, the politicians, the Colombian drug lords, all you who lobby against making drugs legal, just like you did with alcohol during the Prohibition. You're the one who's guilty. I mean, come on, let's kick the ballistics here. Ain't no Uzis made in Harlem. Not one of us in here owns a poppy field. This thing is bigger than immortal technique. This is big business. This is the American way.
Do you have a group or organization founded on the principles of personal liberty, health freedom, or accountable government? We invite you to check out Same Side Entertainment. Same Side is a source for activists and liberty organizations to connect with well-known leaders in today's growing movement for sustainable living, personal liberty, and sovereignty issues. Same Side has a variety of keynote speakers, debate panels, interactive web presentations, musicians, and liberty-based entertainment, as well as services for web design, graphic design, video, and photography. Same Side can help customize your event by connecting you to the best of the liberty and political world while staying within your budget. Get connected with leaders in the liberty movement like Tom Woods, Kevin Gutzman, Jack Hunter, Robert Scott Bell, Bob Murphy, Michael Scheuer, John Bush, Jordan Page, Tatiana Moroz, and many more. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and our website at www.samesideentertainment.com. Again, that's www.samesideentertainment.com. Same Side Entertainment, connecting you with the education and resources you need.
All right, I'm back, everybody. I just want to throw the number out there for anybody listening who might want to call in. Number's 323-417-6713. Again, that's 323-417-6713. I just want to play this just because I love it. It's Bill O'Reilly. Hold on. It's like 4 seconds long, but it's completely worth it.
Do it live. I'll write it and we'll do it live. Fucking thing sucks.
I love Bill O'Reilly. I can't back that up. All right, let's go on. Moving on with this article. AmericasVoiceNow.org. The plan to take America back, place all state and federal capitals under civil disobedience. Now, we covered basically his introduction, what his plan for all businesses to do, all individuals, the day this is supposed to begin, the slogans, and what will happen. Now, he goes on with the final parts of his article. What is the goal? And so what demands are we making? Now, it's funny as he puts what demands are we making. He's basically pinned himself as the leader of this. He's basically come out with the demands without, consulting 300 other Americans, But I think, desperate times call for desperate measures. This guy has obviously put this out there, hoping that someone will latch onto it and help him run with it. So what is the goal? And he starts off, the question of the goal of this process is to take back our nation peacefully, civilly, but with unrelenting force. Not a big fan of the non-aggression principle if you're going to use the word force. Now, are we exempt from the non-aggression principle if we're using force against those that would force against us, like the government? I guess that's kind of like one of those moral things you might struggle with. I personally, the government forces on us. They force us to do things daily. We have to pay taxes. We have to drive a certain way. We're not allowed to put certain things in our body. So maybe I can agree with that unrelenting force argument back at the government. No government can exist without funding from the citizenry. Well, I agree. I think that if we actually stop funding the government, then they would cease to exist. And Adam Kokesh has his philosophy that eventually the government will basically become irrelevant with technology. I actually watched this great documentary called Connected, and it really talks about the internet and the interweb and how it connects us with people from all different nations. And I like to think that the younger generation is becoming, I was listening to Tripp's show before, and I think it was Jack Blood that he was interviewing. I kind of came in a little late. I was doing something. He was talking about how the younger generation, I think it was Tripp actually, he brought up the younger generation is going to be, I apologize. I can't remember who it was. Maybe Tripp will come in and tell me. But was saying that the kids today are going to be more knowledgeable, more informed. I think, and they're fighting. It's like this natural revolution. That just it's deep within inside us. It's our own what's the word I'm trying to find here? The evolution of fighting control, which I actually kind of like that theory. I thought it was a really neat way of looking at the future, the possible future. So he goes on here to say, everyone knows and acknowledges that our state and federal governments are completely out of control in relation to both money and abuse of power. I wouldn't say everybody. There are still people out here that believe in, what the government's doing to a T. They'll fight it. My president's got a D in front of his name, so everything he does is right. My president has an R in front of his name. So there are those out there who believe that no matter what the government's doing, as long as their proper letter is in front of the person's name, that they're doing no wrong. And he goes on, our goal is to cut off the money supply and starve the beast to death. Either it will capitulate to our demands or it will die. In either event, we the people will come out of this period with our nation intact and our Constitution again in full force and effect. Now, some people say that the Constitution and the Bill of Rights were bad. I disagree. I believe they were actually good. I think the problem was the people. Again, I treat the Constitution and the Bill of Rights like a restraining order for the government. And we, the people, and I think, and I'll get into my argument against why I think that it's different now than 200 years ago. They say, well, if it didn't work then, it won't work now. And I kind of disagree. I think if we could just get government down to 10% of what it is now. Say that's as far as you can get it. Say the there is absolutely no way you can get rid of government 100%, which would be the ultimate goal. I like his saying, this guy's saying that the government will just die. That would be like, wow, great. But let's just say that we could just get it back to 10%, and we had the Constitution and the Bill of Rights back in full effect, intact. I think that with technology today and as fast as news travels, it would be much more difficult for government to abuse its power than it did 150, 200 years ago. You got to think about it, man. People they passed these laws even going back 100 years ago with the implementation of the Federal Reserve and the income tax. You know, those things, news didn't just travel like it does today. You know, we pretty much know within 24 hours when somebody in our government does something wrong. So I think if it was possible to get down to that 10%, you know, government size of what it is now, and you always use the technology we have to push for that 100%, and even if we could never get it down to 100%, God forbid, I would love to get it down to 100%, but even if you couldn't, it was just impossible. 10%, if you just hold it, you work on it, you know, you keep going that 100%, trying to keep it, and I think you keep it at 90%, you hold it. I mean, maybe 95%. You know, maybe I'm being a little optimistic here, but I think that, you know, with technology the way it is today, with how fast information travels, it would be a lot easier to hold government at bay. You know, they tricked us for many years, and it's really coming back to bite them in the ass. So here he goes. He's got 10 demands, and he's got 4, 5, 6, and 7 all have subsets. So he's got 4A, 4B, 5A, 5B, and then 7 goes all the way to E. So I'm going to go through these one by one. So our demands that we are making: all existing members of Congress resign pending an emergency nationwide election for both state and federal governments. Okay, not a big fan of that demand. Who are we going to put in their place? Yeah, I mean, maybe I need to read more of his demands, because unless one of his demands is we need to repeal all sorts of other laws, you know. So let's go on, and then I'll go back and cover. I'm going to read them all, and then I'm going to cover them, because he usually answers a question that I have later on. Number 2, President Barack Obama must resign pending an emergency national election to replace him. Again, replace him with who? You know, maybe we need to work on some other things before we replace a president, you know. No current member of Congress may run again in the emergency election. I think he should amend that to ever again, you know. I think maybe we can make some exceptions for like someone like Justin Amash. Nationwide personal taxation at the level not to exceed 10% of income. All right, hold on. I have to boo that. I'm sorry. Hold on.
Boo! Boo! Boo!
Nationwide personal taxation. Look, make it 0, okay? Make it 0. Get rid of taxation altogether. Taxation is theft. There are other ways to, you know, if you wanted to keep government at 10% or 5%, there's other ways to gain taxes without even having to worry about taking and stealing other people's money. So let's just get rid of number 4, or just amend that, get rid of the 1 and leave the 0% of income. A, everyone pays, not 51%, but everyone. Again, wrong. Wrong. I mean, what are you gonna tax, you know, the stay-at-home mom? So does that mean the father, you know, the husband who works is going to get taxed, you know, or is he saying the people who use the loopholes, et cetera? No deductions, no loopholes. You know, I get rid of the income tax. Number 4 just needs to be amended. Get rid of the income tax. So there are plenty of other ways, especially if you can reduce government. You know, if he hasn't put it in here already, stop paying government officials. Stop paying them. You know, if they can't get paid, you know, they won't want to work more than 1 to 2 months. They won't be in Washington long enough to keep screwing up. Stop paying them all together. If you want to be in government, you leave the businesses in your family's hands and your friends' hands while you leave for 1 to 2 months out of the year. Just get rid of taxing. We don't need to pay Congress and the Senate. They don't need to get paid. They don't need pensions. What a bunch of bullcrap. They're lawyers. Trust me, they make plenty of money. Nationwide, number 5, nationwide corporate taxation at a level not to exceed 20%. Well, again, another number that I believe needs to be down to 0. No deductions, no loopholes. If a corporation attempts to avoid paying taxes by hiding or sheltering money overseas, that corporation is prohibited from doing business in the United States. Okay. Not really a free market guy, I can see. Look, if you get it down to 0, companies won't want to leave. They won't want to go anywhere. They'll stay here. They'll produce their stuff. They'll make their stuff here, and people will get paid a decent wage. Number 5, let's make that 0. Number 6, the Federal Reserve must return all national banking and money supply to the Treasury as constitutionally mandated within a 3-year time frame. I'm sorry. I see no reason why that can't happen within a week. Yeah, just get them out of here. Boot them out. Do what Iceland did. How come that didn't get covered by the mainstream media? How come Iceland didn't get covered by the mainstream? That's what I want to know. Here's a country that just said, you know what, bankers, we want you out, and we're going to kick you out. We're going to do it ourselves. So, all right, let's see here. Going back to the article, number 6A, the Treasury Department shall not delegate the constitutional duties and obligations to any third party, and B, the Treasury shall not use fractional banking. All money must be backed by precious metal. I agree with that. I think that our dollar should be backed by a precious metal. Some people think that our monetary system is bullshit regardless. I think bartering is a better way to go, but some things you can't just barter, some things you can't barter for. It's kind of hard. I'll make you a sandwich if you build me a house. Not everybody has skills and talents that everybody wants. So I think needs to be some type of money. There are other alternative currencies, Bitcoin, Litecoin, etc. So let's move on. Number 7, all administrative agencies not constitutionally mandated are immediately disbanded and considered null and void, including but not limited to the following. Letter A, the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, no argument there. B, DHS, Department of Homeland Security. Oh, that's just a waste. That's like one of the biggest wastes that this country ever created. Next to number C, which I think should be number A, the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service. We have no need for the IRS. It will be replaced with a simple monitoring body to ensure all funds are collected. Well, I don't think it should be replaced at all. If you get rid of the income tax, corporate taxes, all that other BS, you don't need a IRS. You don't need them at all. You don't even need a monitoring body to ensure all funds are collected. D, excuse me, folks, let me clear my throat. D, ATF, DEA, SEC, USDA, FDA, DOE, and he provides the link for the entire list at usa.gov/directory/federal/index. And in number E, no agency shall exist. Hold on, I'm going to cough, folks. I'm going to mute my button here for a second. That's the problem with talking for 2 hours straight. Man, I don't know how Tripp did it for so long. E, no agency shall exist. Congress has no authority to subdelegate the limited power of attorney that the Constitution provides for it to possess. I can agree, getting rid of all those. Department of Education? Yes, he did. He included that one. Okay. 8, state and federal government shall adopt balanced budgets annually or semi-annually. 9, all government accounting shall be done under GAAP, generally accepted accounting principles. And number 10, the national federal government shall not exceed the enumerated powers delegated to it in the Constitution. I think I can agree with the majority of that. I think he gives a little more liberal. He gives a little bit more to the ability for taxes to survive. I think there's ways. If you got a government down to 9, 5, 10% of what it is now, and I know I'll probably get argued with by the anarchists and the voluntarists. That's fine. I have my philosophical beliefs that are in line with yours. I think if you get it down to that, there's no way you could that could survive without forcefully collecting taxes. There's a way. There are ways, and I'm not going to get into each individual way. I only have a 2-hour show, but there are ways to raise funds to fund something that small. So, and this is the end of that segment. So what demands are we making? This is the end of his article, and I'm going to read it here. Our national currency is on the verge of collapse due to the Federal Reserve diluting the money supply. Administrative agencies' surveillance violates the privacy rights. The IRS is bleeding our nation to death, and they took the fifth. The presidency has become a secret dictatorship. I'd like to think that if we were going to compare ourselves to anything outright, right now I believe we're like this fascist democracy, neither of which are any good, but I think we're like right in there in that middle area that, and this is at any time I hear a media person or some pundit or politician or anybody on the street calling us a democracy, I just want to smack them upside the head for their ignorance. We are a constitutional republic. We were never a democracy. Our laws were meant to protect the rights of the individual, not the rights of the majority. Look it up, folks. It's not hard to figure it out, and it's not hard to understand. All right, he goes on. Every member of Congress has betrayed their oath of office. Well, I can't really argue that. Lobbyists have turned our government into the best Congress money can buy. Our national heritage laws, policies, and Constitution have been sold to the highest bidder. Corruption is the rule of the day in both state and federal governments. Our Constitution is all but defunct after decades of grinding away by traitors and treasonous who call themselves representative of the people. This revolt will, while peaceful, will change everything. Either we change it now while words suffice, or we accept the fundamental change that our government leaders have planned for us. I look at something, Tripp was talking about this with Jack Blood, and he brought up a good point. Is it something that we, as a single parent, I know there are people who don't have kids that are in this movement, but you look at it like, what kind of society are we going to leave for the future? And I think when you have a kid, you have a different perspective on that. And I think you tend to see it a little bit differently. And for me, I don't want to leave something for my child. I don't want to sit back. I want to do something a little bit more to try and preserve something for my children and grandchildren. So I kind of like that. So where was I at? The word to describe that is slavery. Enslaved by debt, monitored, castrated, emasculated, coward, fearful, and subservient to an elitist new world order that declares you to be food and livestock. So he just goes all out in this second to last paragraph. Last paragraph. He quotes Winston Churchill, which I will read to you as well. To be used or abused at the will of your masters. It matters not the name or face of the master, for they are all the same. Tyrants whose ego and desire for power and money are fed by your demise. Join me and spread the word. Well, here I am spreading the word. Doesn't mean I'm necessarily joining him. I think there's some changes that need to be made, some serious changes. However, I agree. If his whole goal is to bring more freedom, and it's not exactly the amount of freedom I want, I see no reason why I shouldn't support it. I might, hey, maybe we should change that 10 to a 0 and that 20 to a 0, and maybe we shouldn't be so excited about replacing our leaders. Like, oh, let's just have, hey, Fred, you want to run for president? Sure, I'll run for president. Yeah, that might be a little bit, So I'm going to read this quote here he put from Winston Churchill. Still, if you will not fight for the right when you can easily win without bloodshed, if you will not fight when your victory will be sure and not too costly, you may come to the moment when you will have to fight with all the odds against you and only a precarious chance of survival. There may even be a worse case. You may have to fight when there is no hope of victory, because it is better to perish than live as slaves. Folks, I agree with that. I agree that, if we can get all of this accomplished through peaceful means, peaceful civil disobedience, without, and the second part, I would rather die fighting than die as a slave. I'm sorry, it's just not, not my cup of tea to be somebody's slave. I just don't see any benefit for me or my future or my kids' future or anybody's future to be a slave. Something that I think most people don't understand, and I'm going to lay it out here, add it to your argument, tell your friends, we are already slaves. If you look at the implementation of the Federal Reserve, the income tax, the birth certificate, the Social Security, we are basically collateral. That's all we are, collateral. The federal government says, see, Federal Reserve, that we have no, oversight over you, and you lend us all this money at interest. We can pay you back because look how many people we have that pay taxes. See, we have these Social Security numbers, and more are being born every day. The Federal Reserve loans the U.S. government its own money at interest. Who's paying back that interest? Ask yourself that question. It's a pretty easy question to ask yourself. It's the taxpayers. It's the people busting their butt. So the reality is we are slaves. We're slaves to a system that I didn't vote for this. I didn't ask for this. I was born in 1978. A lot of this stuff happened many, 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 many years ago. And now my son, who's 5 years old, he was born into it. And guess what? He's going to have to pay $50,000, $60,000. It's going to be his share that he didn't even ask for. How irresponsible is that? I'd love to sit there and just live in this, I'm watching my American Idol today. I'm watching the Kardashians. I'm totally free because I own my home that for some reason, my property I have to pay taxes on, but I own it, and I have to drive my car, but in order to get there, I have to buy fuel, which I have to pay taxes on. But if I want to use the highway, it's a toll roads, I got to pay my taxes on it. If I want to buy, certain types of products, if I want to own my own clothes, guess what? I got to pay taxes on it. And, anything, I think, honestly, there are things that could be taxed that you could consider voluntary, and things that you can tax that you shouldn't tax that aren't voluntary, like food, for instance. It's not voluntary. But, do I need a 52-inch television? Taxed. It's voluntary. I'm choosing to make my life more comfortable. So, if anybody wants to discuss that, that's fine. I'm going to move on to the next break, and in the final segment, I am going to discuss the study done, the 50 freest states, or the 50. Dad, burn it. The freest states, from the most free to the least free, all the way down to 50. And we're going to go with that. I'm going to cover some major states. I'm going to cover the states, where I think people should be moving out of. I'd be surprised if they're not. But for now, I'm going to go ahead and play. I'm going to have a little fun with this next song. I love this song. Tripp showed me and Robert this song on the way to Atlanta, Thrift Shop by Macklemore. And I'll see you guys here in a few minutes.
Hey, Macklemore, can we go thrift shopping?
What?
in my pocket. I'm hunting, looking for a come up. This is fucking awesome.
Now, walk up to the club like, what up? I got a big cock. I'm just pumped. I bought some shit from a thrift shop. Ice on the fringe is so damn frosty. The people like, damn, that's a cold ass honky. Rolling in hella deep, headed to the mezzanine. Dressed in all pink, set my gator shoes. Those are green drapes and a leopard mink. Girl standing next to me. Probably should have washed this. Smells like R. Kelly sheets. But shit, it was 99 cents. I get copping it, washing it. About to go and get some compliments. Passing up on those moccasins. Someone else has been walking in. Bummy and grungy fucking man. I am stunting and flossing and saving my money. And I'm hella happy that's a bargain, bitch. I'ma take your grandpa style. I'ma take your grandpa style. No, for real. Ask your grandpa, can I have his hand-me-down? Velour jumpsuit and some house slippers. Dookie brown leather jacket that I found. Dig it. They had a broken keyboard. I bought a broken keyboard. I bought a ski blanket. Then I bought a kneeboard. Hello, my ace man, my mellow. John Wayne ain't got nothing on my fringe game, hell no. I could take some pro wings, make them cool, sell those. Some sneakerheads to be like, he got the Velcro.
I'm gonna pop some tags, only got $20 in my pocket. I'm hunting, looking for a come up. This is fucking awesome. I'm gonna pop some tags, only got $20 in my pocket. I'm hunting, looking for a come up. This is fucking awesome.
What she know about rocking the wolf on your noggin? What she knowin' about wearing a fur fox skin? I'm digging, I'm searching right through that luggage. One man's trash, that's another man's come up. Thank your granddad for donating that plaid button up shirt. Cause right now I'm up in her skirt. I'm at the Goodwill, you can find me in the... I'm not stuck, I'm searching in the section. Your grandma, your auntie, your mama, your mammy. I'll take those flannel zebra jammies secondhand and rock that motherfucker. The built-in onesie with the socks on that motherfucker. I hit the party and they stop in that motherfucker. They be like, oh, that Gucci, that's hella tight. I'm like, yo, that's $50 for a t-shirt. Limited edition, let's do some simple edition. $50 for a t-shirt, that's just some ignorant bitch. I call that getting swindled and pimped. I call that getting tricked by business. That shirt's hella dope. And having the same one as 6 other people in this club is a hella don't. Peep gang, come take a look through my telescope. Tryna get girls from a brand, man, you hella won't. Man, you hella won't.
I'm gonna pop some tags, only got $20 in my pocket. I'm hunting, looking for a come up. This is fucking awesome. I'll wear your granddad's clothes. I look incredible. I'm in this big ass coat from that thrift shop down the road. I'll wear your granddad's clothes. I look incredible. I'm in this big ass coat from that thrift shop down the road. I'm gonna pop some tags. Only got $20 in my pocket. I'm hunting, looking for a come up. This is fucking awesome.
Is that your grandma's coat?
All right, folks. I just have one thing to say about that song. I love that song. I could listen to it 100 times. It's absolutely awesome. I think it's because I have like an affinity for garage sales. I don't know. I rarely buy anything at garage sales. You know, in fact, most times I don't even carry cash with me, but I like to go look at other people's junk. I bought a couple of things though. I bought like a crossbow, but it's like a replica crossbow. It doesn't even really work. It's on display. You know, I buy, you know, some really interesting stuff. I have intricate taste, I guess. But we're going to go on. We're going to end this show. I pulled up here from freedomin50states.org, and it's the overall list. You know, you can break it down. You can do fiscal, regulatory, personal, economic, liability, property rights, tax burden, marriage, family friendliness, find a job, education. Oh my goodness, it keeps going on. I mean, you can break this down to every possible, all the way down to gambling, right to work, alcohol, homeschool, travel. So you can break down each individual state, all 50, into all these subcategories. I don't have that much time. I got about 20 minutes before I got to do my plugs and get out of here. But I am going to cover some of the overall. I think what I'm going to first do is I'm going to cover the freest states, and they have about 5, the top 5 freest states. And it's really interesting here. Here we got, let's see here, number 1 North Dakota. Number 1 overall, number 4 fiscally, number 20 personally, number 4 regulatory. It's moved up 4 spots from 2009. North Dakota, your number 1 state. Now, I'm not moving to North Dakota. I'm not doing it. I'm not living, I like cold weather, but I don't like, snowy cold weather. I don't know. I mean, I grew up down here in Orlando, Florida. I've been here since I was 5. My goal was always to kind of move to, California, San Diego, where it was like, I think it was like 70-something degrees all year round. So, and let's see here, number 2 overall, the South Dakota. So the Dakotas take over the 1 and 2 spots. I'm still not moving there. But here's the thing: is they're number 46 with personal freedom. So if you're looking to go with personal freedom, probably not the state you want to live in. In fact, it dropped from number 1 to number 2 to give this number 1 spot to North Dakota. So, maybe, if you're looking for fiscal freedom, great, but personal freedom, not so much, So let's see here. Number 3 is going to be Tennessee. Number 3 overall, number 2 fiscally, number 24 personal freedom. So you're right there in that average, and it hasn't moved. So I mean, they're basically they're holding on to that number 3 spot. I'm not moving to Tennessee because I'm not a big fan of the Titans or the Volunteers. I like sports, yes. I'm one of those people who still like sports that are in this liberty movement. Sorry, folks. I don't play fantasy football. I don't get into all that garbage. I don't memorize stats, but it's fun to enjoy a little entertainment, just like going to a movie. Now, getting on to number 4, and number 4 is a state that many of us are familiar with. That's going to be New Hampshire. They dropped 2 spots to the number 4 spot, which is funny, is because this is since 2009. And this is where everybody's the Free State Project. Everybody's trying to get everybody to move there to make it the freest state alive, and it dropped 2 spots. So I don't know. Is it working? Is it not working? I mean, they're still one of the free states. Their overall is number 4. Their personal freedom is number 5. So I mean, you still have a lot of personal. And the fiscal freedom is number 6. So I mean, even then, you're still living in a really free state, but the regulatory is number 27, so it's weird. And Oklahoma coming in at number 5. Number 5. I don't know much about Oklahoma. I feel sorry for the residents of Oklahoma. I know that they just went through that crazy tornado. And that's, when you're putting these, this is something that they don't put into account. In Florida, we have to deal with hurricanes, but we got tons of warning when it comes to hurricanes. Tornadoes, not so much. You've got precious few minutes to figure out what the heck is going on. Same thing with earthquakes. In Florida, yeah, we have our disasters, but you have warning, and even then, chances are it's going to skip past you and hit one of the Carolinas, or it's going to hit Louisiana and Texas. So, rounding out the top 5, that's North Dakota, South Dakota, Tennessee, New Hampshire, and Oklahoma. Oklahoma coming in number 5, number 3 fiscally, number 28 personally, and number 17 regulatory. Now, let me cover the bottom 5. And I want to cover this because this is what cracks me up, is liberals claim that they have, I think there was like some study done where they claim that the Democrats have like 6 points higher IQ average, as opposed to a Republican. But apparently they like to live in the states that are the least free. They're so smart they can't run their own damn lives. They need the government to do it for them. So, going on, let's see here. Let's see what number 50 is. Let me go with 45. Let me see here. Which one's 45? number 46. I'm sorry, Rhode Island coming in at number 46. Their fiscal freedom's 42. Their personal freedom's 33. Regulatory is 43. All right, so they're sitting there. Oh, here we go. This is number 47. This is supposed to be that free spirit place to live. You've got the beaches and the hula dresses. Hawaii coming in at number 47, a zero change from 2009. Fiscal freedom is 49. Personal freedom is 45. So, folks, you have these great places where all the smartest people live, but you're least free from moving there. So let's go on to number 48. New Jersey, right there in the armpit of America. Sorry if I insult anybody, but Florida's the penis and New Jersey is the armpit. Sitting at number 48, 48 overall fiscally, 42 overall personally, and 48 overall regulatory. So no, I will not be moving to New Jersey. So let's move on to number 49, California, a very blue state, red, Sitting at 49, their fiscal freedom, 44%, personal freedom's 47%, and they're sitting dead last in regulatory, which means, I don't know, why are they having so many problems raising taxes if they have probably the most regulations there? Probably because no businesses want to do business there anymore. So, and here's my overall favorite, my personal favorite, sitting at the number one. Everybody loves New York, but nobody's allowed to be free there. Sitting at number 50, fiscal freedom 50, personal freedom 48, regulatory 47. How sad and pathetic is that? This is supposed to be this, everybody loves New York. It's New York, man. How could you not love New York? I mean, New York is the greatest, the bee's knees. No, this is what kills me. I don't know what the stats are. It'd be interesting to see if they're if they're witnessing a population reduction with all these new laws coming out, especially within the city of New York. Are they witnessing a mass exodus? Are they witnessing people just moving out? I don't see how people want to live in a state where you can't even drink a soda over 16 ounces. How ridiculous is that? Really? You're going to tell me how much I can drink? You're going to tell me how big my magazine can be? You're going to tell, but check out that chick with her tits flopping in the air. You know what I mean? I guess we have to consider our level of freedom based on our needs and our desires. And that's why I like this website. This website, you can kind of go through here and figure out, where you want to live with the most freedom. Let me see here. Who's number one with personal freedom? That's what I really want to know. Alaska, number one with personal freedom. Wow. If you want to be absolutely free, go live in the place that you're farthest away from the country. There you go. If you want to be absolutely free, and they're sitting at number 13 overall, go live, and they've moved up 9 because apparently they were sitting at number 22 the last time. But if you want absolute personal freedom, the best you can get, move to the farthest away from the mainland as you can get from the main country. That's just sad. Let's see here. Who's number 2 in personal freedom? Let's see here. And that's going to be number 2 is Nevada, of course, the land where you can legally get a prostitute. Which, as a libertarian, political libertarian, or anarchist, voluntarist, whatever you want to call me, I believe prostitution should be legal. Not because I want to go get a prostitute, but, no victim, no crime. If she has an STD, this is the argument. Well, you can't make prostitution legal because then you just spread STDs. So my next question to you is, do the laws prevent them from spreading STDs? Well, no. Okay, so they're going to spread regardless. But in the meantime, we're putting people in jail for a voluntary exchange. If you're going to go get that $5 crack whore, you probably take the risk of, getting an STD. But if you're spending $300-400 for an hour on some really hot escort, then chances are you're probably going to be pretty safe, hopefully. I mean, I'm not making any guarantees. I don't want anybody coming knocking on my door saying, you guaranteed me I'd be safe with the $400 prostitute. No. And now here's another one. If you want to go all the way to the very tippy top of the East Coast, in Maine, they're number 3 in personal freedom. So it seems to me that you're either going to be really cold as hell to be a slave of the least amount of freedom, or cold as hell to have the most amount of freedom, or you could live in Hawaii or Southern California, I guess. You could kind of throw those in there. Now, I'm going to cover my state just because I'm a little biased there. I'm going to cover Florida, and I think this is kind of depressing. Sitting at 23 overall. 23. Number 36 on the personal freedom. How sad is that? That is just sad. And I live in this state. I have to put up with that crap. Fiscal freedom, we're sitting at number 11, so that's kind of nice. But really, we moved up 5 just to get to the 23 spot. That is sad. Personal freedom, 36. That's just, ugh. I mean, at least we're moving up. I mean, I guess if I want to put like a silver lining on it, a little positive spin, I could say, well, at least we're number 5. I would have liked to see Washington, D.C. on here, but apparently they're not a part of the country, so they don't exist on, they don't, which cracks me up because they have laws, and they have to follow those laws, so it's funny because you hear about these states. You got like California, Louisiana sitting here at number 37 overall, 40 at personal freedom. Folks, I don't understand how people talk so much great stuff about these places. I wouldn't want to live here. I wouldn't want to live going back, hindsight's 2020. I almost moved to California. I wouldn't want to live there now, knowing what I know now. I wouldn't want to live in Louisiana. Texas, there we go, sitting at number 14, but you're slipping, you drop 6. So, folks, it's a really cool website, freedomin the50states.org, if you're /overall. This is put together by the George Mason University, the Mercatus Center. If you really if you're looking at moving and you want to find the freest state possible, or you want to find, the best education, family friendliness, economic, personal, regulatory, fiscal, whatever whatever drives you to the most free, you can go on here and you can find you're looking to move, you're looking to get out of your state. In fact, New Yorkers, if you're looking for a better place to live, check out this website. It gives you plenty of options. Trust me, you got 50 options. And folks, that was really what our government and our country was set up to do. States' rights were supposed to be basically, you're supposed to have 50 different examples of freedom. And that's where the federal government comes in. They just shit all over that. They basically give money to the states, and the states go, oh, you're giving us money? You can make whatever damn laws you want. And that's the sad reality of it. But we still have some freedoms within these states where you can find greater freedom than another state, and you can go, say, live in New Hampshire, Free State Project, or you can live, Keene, New Hampshire, I think is where they're really working on that Free State Project. Or you can go live in North Dakota. Or if you really just think that the government needs to take care of your ass and you want gun control, go live in freaking Chicago. Get the hell out of my state. But, we weren't meant to come up with federal laws to mandate how everybody's supposed to live. It's supposed to be 50 different examples of freedom. And, if you really want to find what's best for you, check out this website. I think it's really cool. I'm gonna plug Same Side Entertainment again real quick, and then come back to do my my plugs for all my friends out there that are doing that are living in the liberty movement. So here's a promo for Same Side Entertainment.
Do you have a group or organization founded on the principles of personal liberty, health freedom, or accountable government? We invite you to check out Same Side Entertainment. Same Side is a source for activists and liberty organizations to connect with well-known leaders in today's growing movement for sustainable living, personal liberty, and sovereignty issues. Same Side has a variety of keynote speakers, debate panels, interactive web presentations, musicians, and liberty-based entertainment, as well as services for web design, graphic design, video, and photography. Same Side can help customize your event by connecting you to the best of the liberty and political world while staying within your budget. Get connected with leaders in the liberty movement like Tom Woods, Kevin Gutzman, Jack Hunter, Robert Scott Bell, Bob Murphy, Michael Scheuer, John Bush, Jordan Page, Tatiana Moroz, and many more. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and our website at www.samesideentertainment.com. Again, that's www.samesideentertainment.com. Same Side Entertainment, connecting you with the education and resources you need.
You know, folks, I apologize. I have a caller who's been on hold for quite some time. You know, I get wrapped up in these, you know, when it's me and Robert, you know, I can jump in here and see if we get a caller. He can jump in and see if we get a caller. You know, I've been, you know, kind of going off these articles and reading them. I'm going to take this caller. We got about 5 minutes before I got to do my plugs. Caller, are you there? Hello?
I am here. I'm just listening.
Oh, you're just listening. Okay, well, I can put you back on mute and do my plugs. Who is this?
Okay.
Where are you from? Who is this?
Tennessee.
Tennessee. Oh, well, how do you like living in one of the freest states in the Union?
No.
And what's your name?
Hello.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll go ahead and put you back on mute. I'm getting ready to do my plugs. Check out some of these people that are also, you know, my show's coming to an end here in about 10 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and do the plugs. Listen to the plugs. Check out some of these other entertainment features we have and other people to listen to. Thank you for listening, by the way.
Okay, you're welcome. Thank you.
All right, folks. Well, you know, I got a call. I'm going to go ahead and give our plugs here, and then I'm going to end this with the song, one of my personal favorite bands. Check us out, me and Robert, journalisticrevolution.com. You can see all in our articles, all our videos. You can go through YouTube, Facebook. If you just search Journalistic Revolution, anything you want to contribute, we are an open source news network. Also, check us out on libertymovementradio.com. You can find us there as Wednesdays and Fridays from 11 to 1 every night, 11 p.m. to 1 a.m. Wednesdays and Fridays, and then I'm all by myself on Sundays. This is my second one. I think I did a much better job. Also at libertymovementradio.com, you can find Adam versus the Man's replays, Adam Kokesh's replay, Trip NWO Fighter Show live. He does Wednesdays and Sundays. Don't kill me, Trip, if I missed anything. From 9 to 11. We Are Not Cattle with Jake Counts. He does his live show as well. And we also would like to plug the Houston Freethinkers with Derek Bros. You can find them on Facebook. Peace News Now with Derek J. Freeman. We use his Peace News Now every Wednesday and Friday for some news. He's a great activist. I have a lot of respect for Derek J. Freeman. Check him out. Cerebral Industrial Complex with Josh Wiley. Met him in Atlanta. Awesome guy. We Are Change with Luke Radowski. Panda, the People Against the National Defense Authorization Act with Dan Johnson. The 1787 Network with Alex Schnichter. Revolution on a Recliner with John Conrad. Check them out. We did an interview with them. It was a lot of fun. They're very smart people, very knowledgeable, and a lot of fun to hang out with. ShinyBadges.com with Davi Barker. If you have a group or an organization you want to promote, contact Davi Barker. He can make you some shiny badges with your logo, and you can, you know, I think that I've checked some of the prices. We're working on doing some future stuff with them. And check out journalisticrevolution.com's Weatherman. Also on YouTube, you can find him under Suspicious Observer. We upload his shows daily. And on behalf of me and Robert and Journalistic Revolution, folks, I just want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for coming out and enjoying our show. Again, Wednesdays and Fridays from 11 p.m. to 1. I'm going to go ahead and end this on, I'm going to go ahead and play my friend's band. I'm going to play, I think I'm going to play This Gift. It's a very good song. These guys will be at the House of Blues in Orlando, Florida. Great friends, great band. Have a nice evening. Thank you.
You have not always been libertarian or voluntarist. You may have always had feelings and thoughts about what freedom is, but you are not the same that you were 5, 10, or even 15 years ago. I find it sad that I see so many insults, no matter how true they may be, being thrown around towards people both inside and outside our movement. Let me address those insults to those outside the movement first. You were not always a part of the liberty movement. Would you have joined the movement if the people in it screamed statist and sheeple at you constantly? What if they talked to you in a condescending way when you first joined the movement? I know what some of you would say. Being offended is BS. I humbly disagree. We are in this movement because we are offended. I'm offended that other people think that they can tell me what to do with my life. I'm offended that a majority vote can steal from me. I'm offended that the government has become my mother. I digress. Now for the insulting and fighting inside the movement. We are individuals, and we have different levels of growth inside the liberty movement. And you want what? Conformity? Seems a little counterintuitive, don't you think? I want my liberty to believe and behave as I see fit, and all of you must believe and do exactly like I do. In closing, unless you are understanding of those in the dark, you're never going to wake them up. Unless you are tolerant, and tolerance is not endorsement, of those who believe differently than you, then you are just like the system that we are fighting against. Ask yourself this: if present you met past you, would you be able to convince him to join the movement at all? Or would you just call him or her a statist and sheeple until he or she would never join the movement in the first place?